YouTube.
YouTube.
All right. Good morning and Shabbat Shalom. We are live on YouTube, so I'm going to go ahead and do the sad part, the saddest part, and mute everybody. And we will begin, and then I'll start sharing our Siddur.
Okay, just go into
I'm going to pull up our Siddur. All right, everybody, I hope that wherever you are joining us for, you're having a good day so far, that you're having a restful Shabbat from last Friday to now, and we will start this morning's worship, these words of gratitude. Mod ani, no matter what is going on in our lives, no matter where we are, no matter what our personal situation is, our tradition teaches us that every day the very first thing that we are supposed to do when we wake up is say these words of gratitude, just the basic thing that our soul has returned to us. What a miracle. So I want to invite you to just think of one thing that you are feeling grateful for. You can look around, you can find something in your own home. It can be small, it can be large, just something that you want to acknowledge. You don't even have to share it with us, but just something that you are personally acknowledging gratitude for this morning. And for those who have a talit, who are wearing a talit this morning, I will invite those of us to share in this blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lechitatef b'tzitzit. Amen. Ma tovu, this prayer, I've said it before, and I think really I have found new connection to Ma tovu in this time of COVID, this time of isolation, this time of being in our homes. I always, for me, thinking of Ma tovu, I resonated with that tov, right? Finding the goodness just as a practice in our lives, right? And thinking about our Jewish communities. And what I used to take away from Ma tovu, so how great are your tents, O Jacob, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, your dwelling places, O Israel. But really, when we used to be kind of in a regular synagogue environment, this Mishkenotecha, the dwelling places, well, Mishkan, the root, that was our name for the ultimate dwelling place of God in Torah, in the Bible. And so I used to think, wow, we think of these dwelling places, and that's a metaphor for our sanctuary, right? When we get to be in our temple, that's the metaphor for our holy space. But my goodness, one thing that this pandemic has done for us, it really brings us back to the base interpretation of Matovu. Literally, our dwelling places. We're not talking about a metaphorical dwelling place of Bashert Synagogue and 83 Marlborough Road, right? Our literal tents and dwelling places have become our personal sanctuaries. It is this beautiful concept, right? That we create holy space wherever we are. Yes, there are some spaces specifically distinguished for our practice of Judaism. But this has opened us up to the lesson that wherever we are, whatever our surroundings, that is a holy place. So we'll sing these few lines of Matovu. Asher Yatsar, our blessings for our physical bodies. We'll read this together. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom, you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life. Were one of them to fail, how well we are aware we would lack the strength to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofe chol basar umafli la'asot. Amen. Moving from our physical bodies to our soul, which is held inside. Elohai Neshama. Elohai Neshama Shenatata B'Temo Rahi. Elohai Neshama Shenatata B'Temo Rahi. Elohai Neshama Psalm 150, our song of praise, our song of praise and joy. Hallelujah. Acknowledging Yah, this source of life. And if you see, even if you don't speak Hebrew, in this final letter, if we see this dot in our hey, we don't often get a dot in our hey at the end of the word. And what it tells us to do is pronounce this ha letter, but actually make it sound a little breathier. So if you want to take a chance and go, that inherent in God, inherent in the divine, in the holiness, is this connection to our breathiness. And so when we say Yah, God's name, it's not just Yah, but we're actually invited to put that breathiness in the sound, Yah. So I want to invite you to connect to your breath as a source of praise, to try to hold that actual physical when we say God's name, and even to invite you when we're using God language through the service. What is it to really connect your breath? Yeah. What does it feel like? Does it make you connect to your physical bodies a little more in thinking about that joy? Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. have in your surrounding to help create that noise. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Oh, my heart, hallelujah, hallelujah. The name of it, oh God. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Titillation. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Titillation. Akohanshama. Kohanishamate. Hallelujah. Kohanishamate. Hallelujah. Kohanishamate. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Kohanishamate. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I'm going to invite you to take just a deep breath, inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth, letting your body settle in whatever way is comfortable. Maybe if you're sitting down, sitting just a little more upright, making your head lift a little higher, stretching your feet down to the floor, maybe stretching out your body a little bit as we approach Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu, kind of everything up to this point has been a warm-up, has gotten us ready to pray as a community. And now at this moment of Baruch Hu, entering what is truly our communal, powerful prayer as we address the divine. And I will invite you to rise, whether that is rising physically or rising in spirit, as we start our Baruch Hu. We continue with our Shema, and I want you to take this chance to connect to that breath again. We'll take each word of the Shema as one breath. It's always sad for me that we're muted in this situation, that we don't hear the chorus of voices that we could if we were coming together. But one opportunity that this provides for us is that we can truly take on this practice of connecting to each word of the Shema as a breath, really giving our own time, whatever pace is right for you. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. can be seated, continuing with our Via Havta, our prayer of love. We'll chant together. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננת לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך וחיו לשותפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות להם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, Adonai Elohechem Emet. Our Micha Mocha, our song of freedom. As we prepare for our tefillah, I want to invite you to once again take a breath, connect with how your body is feeling this morning, how you are doing physically and spiritually. I want you to think back to the moment that you woke up today. Did you wake up easily? Was it a hard push to get out of bed? Did you feel energized? Were there any intentions that you hoped to get out of this day? Are there any intentions that you want to set for yourself right now? One thing, what's one little thing that you can do for yourself or for those around you on the remainder of this Shabbat, these next few hours of daylight ahead of us? What is one thing that you can claim as a practice for today? One thing that could make you maybe stand a little taller. And with that intention, I'll invite us to rise if we're able. Rise physically or rise in our spirits as we begin our Amidah. Adonai Sifatai Tiftach Ufi Agit Tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei
האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוהר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו ואהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם, בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בגבורות ובדרום אלה, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש קדוש קדוש, אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ, כבודו אדיר אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו ומלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Can be seated. We will continue with this blessing over Shabbat, our Visham Ru. And I want to invite you to just check in once again with your bodies. How you're feeling now compared to that first breath. How you're feeling now compared to the breath we took at the beginning of the Amidah. If you thought about any intentions that you want to stand for this Shabbat day, anything that you want to take on. Vishamru. Vishamru, Bnei Yisrael, et HaShabbat, לעשות את השבת, לתורותם וריתונם, ושמרו בני ישראל, את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לתורותם וריתונם.
לעולם תשמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לתורתם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Our Kedushat Hayom, our prayer for this Shabbat day, we'll read in English together. Our God and God of our ancestors, be pleased with our rest. Sanctify us with your mitzvot and grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness and gladden us with your salvation. Purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In gracious love, Adonai, our God, grant us your holy Shabbat as a heritage. May Israel, who sanctifies your name, rest on Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat. And just a little note, Sav'enu mituvecha, satisfy us with your goodness, a concept that actually we're going to see this language kind of originating in our Torah portion of Akev this morning. So now I want to take a chance to just pause for a moment and think about gratitude. Our Amidah provides these opportunities for communal blessings and gives us a carved out opportunity to say, hey, while we're reflecting, while we're offering our blessings, we need to think about what is it that we are personally grateful for today and express that. And when we express that publicly, communally, we not only get to elevate our own gratitudes, become more self-aware of it, but we actually get to spread that gratitude, helping those in our community to maybe cling to some of those things and be inspired. So if there is anything that you are feeling grateful for, I would invite those of us on Zoom to unmute and we can share in the chat to take a moment and we can together lift up those blessings in our lives. Anyone who wants to share? So I will say this morning that I am feeling grateful for just the ability to get into nature. Hazel, I see that you're unmuted. Did you want to add anything for us?
Yeah, last week I was very worried with the impending hurricane because I was having problem with water coming into an air conditioner and drenching or whatever. And I went over just to visit my son and I told him my problem. He said, I have to come over right away. And he did. He climbed on the roof. He came up with a solution and I did not have water. But I've never had such a prompt reply from him. And I am so, so grateful.
Amazing. Not flooding and family connection in time. Beautiful.
Yeah, he's great, but he's also very busy. And I couldn't believe his absolutely quick response.
Beautiful. And Robert has typed into our chat, good weather. Yes, especially good weather compared to what we've recently had. Freema, how about you?
Well, I'm grateful that everybody survived this hurricane, and thank God nobody got hurt, even though a lot of the trees, unfortunately, got hurt. And just that I pray for everybody to have courage. I know this is a hard time, but we're all going to get through this together, and we just have to have a little courage and just to know that we support each other, whether by on the computer or by phone. I'm a phone person, and if anybody just ever wants to talk or whatever, I'm available.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Joyce, I see that you unmuted. Did you want to share something, Joyce?
I'm just glad I'm here this morning and at services. Thank you, Rabbi Pinsky.
Thanks. All right, and I see in our chat, Karen says that your daughter and her longtime boyfriend just got engaged. Mazel tov to you and to them. Ellen says my electrician was able to replace 2 breakers and not have to wire a totally new system. There we go. Anybody else want to say something? Yeah, Gail, please.
Hey, Bob and I went to the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens this week.
Oops, you got muted, Gail.
Bob and I went to the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens this week. They reopened, and it was wonderful to be back in that very special place. To me, it is like a sanctuary. And yes, there were trees and plants that were damaged, and they are cleaning it up. But just to be back and see the living plants and leaves and flowers and all the beautiful places in the garden, it's a blessing. It's a blessing.
Tamara and I going next week. Can't wait.
Anybody else who wanted to share? I see
I
a
was
few
just
people have
about
unmuted. Tamara.
No, I was just about to do what Ellen said. You have to get your reservations ahead of time, guys. So,
All right. Anybody else have anything little that we want to add to say thank you for? Yeah, Deborah.
Everything. Health, safety, community. You know, it just keeps going.
Beautiful. Well, if there's any other reflections of gratitude, I would invite us to share them in the chat. We are so grateful for all of our blessings. And I want to invite us, I'm going to remute everybody and we'll take some time for our own silent prayer.
Yehi ratzon, imrefi, refi, teyon libi, lefanecha, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Tegoali, Tegoali.
All right, my friends. We are coming towards the Torah portion of our Shabbat morning. So my friends, this week we find ourselves still towards the beginning of the book of Deuteronomy, the last book in our Torah cycle. And this morning we are in Parshat Akev. And what we've seen, the setup of Deuteronomy, of course, is that this is Moses's his last speech to the Jewish people, that this is his chance to tell people how should we approach the rest of our lives together in community. And you know, the people have been wandering in the wilderness for so long, they've forgotten what it is to have an actual space to call their true homeland. And yet their wandering is about to be over. They are almost in that promised land. And so they just have to come a little bit closer. And so I will share our Torah blessings. Just a second. And I would love to invite those of us who feel like we are celebrating any blessings this week, anything hopeful we can find. So Karen, certainly celebrating an engagement, but anybody who feels like you need a little bit of celebration for yourself to uplift you, I would love to have you join in our blessings for the Torah today. So I will chant them, and those of you who want to join in this Aliyah opportunity, please do lead the calls for our chant. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. Amen. All right, so I'm pulling up our Torah reading for this week. We are going to be reading from chapter 8 of Deuteronomy, so a chapter kind of in the middle of our Torah portion this week. Kol ha-mitzvah asher anochi mitzavecha hayom tishmerun la'asot למען תחיון ורביתם ובאתם ורשתם הארץ אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותיכם. זכרת את כל הדרך אשר הוליכך Adonai Elohecha ze 40 shana b'midbar למען anotcha לנסותך לדעת את אשר בלבבך תשמור מצוותיו אם לא. וינך וירעבך ויאכילך את המן אשר לא ידעת ולא ידעון אבותיך למען הודיעך כי לא על הלחם לבדו יחיה האדם כי על כל מוצא פי אדוני יהיה האדם. שמלתך לא בלטה מעליך ורגלך לא בצק זה 40 שנה, וידעת עם לבביך, כי כאשר יסר איש את בנו, אדוני אלוהיך מייסרך, ושמרת את מצוות אדוני אלוהיך, ללכת בדרכיו וליראה אותו. So we'll just look at our translation. You shall faithfully observe all of the instructions that I enjoin upon you today, that you may thrive and increase and be able to possess the land that God has promised an oath to your ancestors. Remember the long way that Adonai has made you travel in the wilderness these past 40 years, that God might test you by hardships to learn what was in your hearts, whether you would keep God's commandments or not. God subjected you to the hardship of hunger and then gave you manna to eat, which neither you nor your ancestors have ever known, in order to teach you that man does not live on bread alone, but that man live on anything that God decrees. The clothes upon you did not wear out, nor did your feet swell for these 40 years. That's pretty impressive. Bear in mind that Adonai disciplines you just as a man disciplines his son. Therefore, keep the commandments of the Lord your God, walk in God's ways, and revere God. And so I'll invite those with our aliyot. I'll pull our blessings back up. Quickly. Taking a second to load, the beauty of technology, but some of the patience that it teaches us, for Shabbat, sometimes just taking a breath. All right, so our text will join together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. So, my friends, this Torah portion, Akav, we find ourselves in the middle of this hurry up and wait portion of the Israelite narrative. We're now in the third parsha, the third Torah portion in the book of Deuteronomy. And after years encamped in the wilderness, the Israelites are in their final stages of preparation before entering the promised land. And after getting a glimpse upon the promised land and learning that they wouldn't enter it, Moses begins this farewell address, right? He sets up our text of Deuteronomy as the guidebook that he is leaving for his people, an attempt to impart wisdom to the community about how they should live in their new land. Now, Moses knows where the Israelites are headed, right? He knows that after years of just living off of manna in the desert, that they're headed to a land of abundance, a land that we read that's flowing with milk and honey, a land that we read is good land with streams and springs, with wheat and barley, vines, pomegranates, olive trees, these beautiful things. We've talked about the beauty of nature and experiencing that. This Torah portion really emphasizes that, appreciating nature for us is something that we have done throughout the beginning of life. A land that people are going to lack nothing, where they can eat without stint, and even the rocks and the hills not used for farming, we're told, are going to provide natural resources to mine copper. A pretty amazing land. Now, Moses knows all of these details. He tells the people, but he's still worried. Sure, all of the people's physical needs are going to be provided for. But what about their other needs? What about their spiritual needs? They've struggled for years. But what's going to happen when things actually turn around? What's going to happen when they have their physical needs taken care of? Are they going to forget where they came from? Are they going to forget that their ancestors were slaves in Egypt and that God had redeemed them? Think about it. If all of a sudden everything's great and they have everything that they're gonna need, are they gonna lose that memory of the chaos of the desert, of being disoriented in their wanderings? Are they gonna forget to appreciate God, who after all was the one who brought them into this covenant, giving them that set of moral and spiritual guidelines by which they would live their lives? Now, lest the people forget these values, the statutes, and the ordinances that Moses has worked so hard to instill with him, he presents the following guideline. Ve'achalta v'savata u'varechta et Adonai Elohecha al ha'eretz hatova asher natan lach. When you have eaten your fill, give thanks to the eternal God for the good land given to you. Now, these words that are actually found for the first time in our Torah portion this week, they've actually made their way into really daily use as part of the Birkat Hamazon, or the grace after meals. Some people refer to this as benching. So the rabbis of the Talmud cite this very verse that comes out of Ekev this week to be the foundation of this practice of saying grace after meals, of our Birkat Hamazon. Now, we know that we have blessings before we eat, right? What is the blessing that we say before we eat something generally? Our motzi, right? Then we're going to say over, if any of you have challah this Shabbat, maybe you said it already last night, maybe you'll have some delicious challah after we are done with our services today. But the idea of blessing food before we eat it is this idea of acknowledging kind of the miracle of what we have in front of us. The book of Genesis taught, right, that God put people on this earth in order to tend to it. So even when we are the ones who are out there growing our food, in Biyachad discussion, we talked about some of us who have our own gardens, who might be sustaining ourselves. I've started growing basil inside. That's fun. That even when we're the ones who are like tending to our physical food, growing it, picking it ourselves, that there's still an acknowledgement that if not for God, we wouldn't have the earth to begin with. So the instructions from our Torah portion, it's not about saying the motzi or blessing the food when we eat it. It's rather we're instructed to express gratitude after we eat, once we're full and satisfied. And in setting this guideline, I think Moses is really speaking to the mindset of his people, and maybe a mindset that we can really relate to after kind of, this period of waiting and wondering, when are we just gonna get to that promised land, right? When are we gonna get to that true freedom? But on the brink of this unknown, right? We're all in an unknown place. The people are afraid. They're filled with doubts about the future. Is this resonating with anybody? But the promise for them of abundance and success, with that promise, Moses has a concern that the people are going to get overconfident, arrogant to the point of having an over-exaggerated sense of entitlement, sense of safety, right? Once they get to the promised land, once they're out of this wilderness, they can go ahead with anything they want to do in their life. They have all the power. So the solution is to keep the people balanced somewhere in the middle. Moses mandates that they have to recognize a power greater than themselves. So Abraham ibn Ezra, who was a medieval rabbi and commentator, emphasizes memory as an antidote to conceit, or an overinflated ego. It's not hard to be grateful or to give thanks when we're hungry, when we need something immediately, when all we can think about is this satisfaction of what we're about to experience. Whether it's actually hunger, right? Whether it's feeling ravenous if you get home from, a rough day, or if it's a metaphorical hunger, this hunger of finally being able to do something that we've been longing to do, to get outside, to hug a friend or a neighbor, right? To just go back to being in person and being in our normal lives. That, we are living in a world where we're used to getting that nourishment immediately. But this sense of acknowledgement, it comes naturally when we want something, right? Oh my gosh, today is the first day that I get to go and take a walk outside after I just got back from traveling in the South and I had to quarantine for 2 weeks. I get to take a walk down the crowded sidewalk of New York City. What a blessing, right? But to acknowledge these things after they happen, when something good is going to come to us, we can appreciate it. But the more challenging part for us comes when we get used to these good things becoming a regular part of our lives. If we think back to a couple months ago, it might seem like forever ago, getting to be on a crowded sidewalk and run into someone and give them a hug or say hi, this was the most basic thing. This was like our everyday as New Yorkers, right? You know, just walking to shul on Shabbat morning, I would bump into people. I've seen Frima walk into the synagogue, like doing errands beforehand. And this was the most basic thing. We got to just say hello. And I took it for granted. Maybe most of us did these basic things. And now what we would give to have that. And I think so much of our lives right now, of thinking about what it's going to be after, you know, this lesson to always remember where we have come from, to remember our time in the wilderness, to remember the time when we weren't free, to remember the time when we didn't have a set of guidelines telling us how to live our lives. Those guidelines that now direct everything we do. Once we are free again, once things start loosening up, once we get to that promised land at the end of all this, it's so important that we don't just forget where we've come from, right? That we don't throw everything away. We need to hang on, first of all, to that gratitude for the small things, the things we might not have acknowledged before, right? When the people were in Egypt, they had delicacies, they had fish, they had all of the exotic vegetables. And then they were slaves. Then they left Egypt. They had this manna totally sustaining them, couldn't want for anything. But what did they do? They complained about not having the fish. It was better in Egypt. We would rather be there, right? So when we leave our deserts and enter back into normal life, we need to remember what has been the small stuff sustaining us. We need to remember what those restrictions were and why we had them in the first place. Moses is worried the people are going to get to freedom and they're not going to remember God, the divine power that's allowed this to happen, right? I think this metaphor is just screaming to me this week that when we loosen up our practices, we need to be careful. We need to not be irresponsible, right? We need to look out for those in our community. And ultimately, this is what is going to give us this reminder, V'achalta v'savata, I ate and I was satisfied, u'verachta, and now I get to bless. That in all of these moments, whatever our life looks like, whether it is in that period of wilderness, whether it is in the expanse of freedom, that we have to hold on to that v'achalta v'savata, that we've experienced, that we've been satisfied, and most importantly, u'verachta. And now we are going to bless. We're going to find the source of blessing. We're going to find the source of joy, no matter how you view God. You don't have to say, well, God has made this all happen, right? Whatever it is, just a little source of blessing. I got to walk out on the street. I got to see a new face today. That is when we bless, that we recognize these moments. And it's exactly in our wilderness, looking to the future, that we can find this gratitude, this blessing, and elevate it and remember it. So I hope that we can hold that with us as we move towards a lot of promised lands that we're coming towards. We have the promised land of, hopefully a little more freedom, especially as our weather gets warmer, maybe things will get a little safer. And we have this promised land coming up. We're getting ready for the High Holy Days, Elul, the month that leads to our high holy days is very quickly coming upon us. So all of this preparation of what do we need to do to check in with ourselves. So friends, while we are focused on our Torah this week, we take a time to think about those in our community in need of healing. So yes, Ellen, I'm seeing in the chat a question, wasn't it all of the Israelite wanderers die before they get to the promised land? So yes, the generation of Israelites, including Moses, all of those who started in the wilderness don't get to see the promised land. But with that 40-year period of wandering, they now have children who have only lived in the wilderness. And those children who have known nothing else, they are the ones who get to enter the promised land, right? So the people, and especially that's why this message of Moses is so important, right? Because those children didn't personally experience the freedom from Egypt. They might forget, right? So it is exactly those people who need to remember the lessons of the past, the lessons of history. So my friends, if there's anyone who you are thinking of in need of some healing, I saw Hazel added early, and anyone else, I would invite you to start typing in the chats, or we can unmute ourselves and share those names. So I will go ahead and read some of the names that were shared. So Suzanne Fishkin-Hurwitz, Della Cohen, Suzanne Shuro, Lila Raymond, May Sun Lay, Iris Merlis, Freya Kashmir, Delphine Wolf. If anyone wants to unmute yourself and speak names out loud, I would invite you to please do that. Yes, I see a couple hands.
Jane. Suzanne Lecknos, Florence.
Freem, I believe I saw your hand.
Martin Bennett, Myra Canal, Reva and David Cohen, Ellie Heimlich, and Phyllis O'Neill.
Okay, and I also
Thank
see
you.
Rebecca Rothstein, Bambi Polk, Marion McGivney, Inga Probetsky. So for all of those who we are thinking of, we say, Mishaberach Avotenu v'Imotenu Avraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless those in need of healing of mind, of body, of spirit. To all of those in our community, those named and those unnamed, to which we say, Amen. All right, my friends, we are now turning towards time to think of more blessings in our community, and I'll invite us to rise Aleinu Lishabeach, our blessing of Aleinu. That first word, it is upon us. Aleinu L'Shabeach, it is upon us to praise. This is one of our prayers for every day, and I think specifically the message really reinforces this lesson of Akev this week, that it is upon us to praise, it is upon us to acknowledge the blessings in our lives. And so I will invite you to rise physically or in spirit as we join together for Aleinu L'Shabeach. Aleinu L'Shabeach L'Adon HaKol, L'Teit Gidula Yotzeh Breshit, Shechunotei Shamayim V'Yosed Aretz, U'Moshav Yikaro B'Shamayim Mima'al, U'Shechina Tuzov V'Golchei Meromim, U'Eloheinu Ein Od, V'Anachnu Korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר וחי אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו We can be seated, and as we approach our mourner's Kaddish, We think of those who are no longer with us, loved ones who we've had lost at this time in seasons past. If there is anyone who you are remembering, I would invite you to either share their names in the chat or share aloud again with us. If there's anybody who wants to share a name now. All right, and let's see if there's any names shared in our chat. So remembering, sorry guys, my chat has frozen a little bit, so I can't scroll down. So I'm going to read the yard site list, and hopefully we will get back to that, but I'll start by reading the names on our yard site list here. So this week we are remembering Hannah Ziegerman Schwimmer, Ido Sheffy, Elaine Gordet, Stephen Kamholtz, Carol Gross, Carol Audrey, Robert Serpico, Jeanette Riley, Melvin Barash, William Lampy, Ina Sandals, Martin Schenken, Solomon Titelbaum, Sean Singer, Jeff Harris, Sammy Berger, Rabbi Kenneth Roseman, Chaim Braunzweig, Harry Baylor, Ben Schaefer, Shirley Hyatt Tobias, Myron Klein, Ted Tobias, Sandy Gannon Abel, David Ribbler, Bess Newman, Buzz Lorch, Benjamin Benjamin Elwood, Edward Albino, Joseph Davis, Jerry Sharon, Gary Zeitlin, Sean Devlin, David Levy, Lenny Drucker, Beverly Tredinick, Evelyn Pincus, Rita Spiro, Beatrice PJ Jacobs, Melvin Jurgrau, Gloria Katzen, Lorraine Elner, Amanda Corwin, Mel Paul, Nigel Grant, Benjamin Resnick, Robin Silverman, and Edie Edelman. Let's see if I'm able, yes, I can see our chat now. Also remembering Jeff Harris, Selma Gold, Latrice Langer. And if there's any other names I've missed, please go ahead and share them aloud with us.
Dorosky.
We join together with words of Mourner's Kaddish. I'll invite you to participate according to your own custom, and if you don't have your own custom, I will invite you to rise. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabbah, v'yalmad yigorach yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon u'vyomechon u'chayei zechol beit Yisrael, v'agalau v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudisha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama Rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the source of blessing and memory be a blessing to all those who are mourning and remembering loved ones. My friends, we will conclude these words, Oseh Shalom, from Mourner's Kaddish. May the one who creates peace on high in the heavens create peace for all of us.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru
just a few words of announcement. There's not so much to announce this week. Things are going on as usual. We have our Torah study still occurring on Tuesday afternoons. Anybody else have anything we should know coming up? I think things are a bit quiet, but get ready for in just a few weeks. We are getting ready to ramp up for Elul and our holy days. They are coming. Ellen, did you have something to tell us?
Yes, August 23rd, we are having a conversation with Ron, oh my God, Schweiger,
Ron Schweiger.
and William Grownick, called basically about the War of the Itchy Balls, Brooklyn Tales, and growing up as a child in Brooklyn. It should be a fascinating conversation.
Great. All
7:30.
right. Friends, so, and you can find out more information on that on the Bear Shirt website and our Facebook page. So friends, our worship is concluding. I will offer these words of blessing, our oldest words of blessing in Jewish tradition, passed down from Aaron to us today. Yivarech Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. May God be kind and gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May you feel that divine presence with you always, and may you feel a sense of peace. My friends, wishing you a Shabbat shalom. I'm going to end our